The year is 1993. A 62-year-old woman is found dead in her home in Germany, strangled to death by a wire taken from a bouquet of flowers found at the scene. Police have no clue as to who did this or why, until they swab a teacup in the house for DNA and analysis reveals it belongs to an unknown woman. This is an absolutely terrible lead. For one, you can't arrest an unknown woman, you can't even question them, and it seems fairly unlikely that this DNA belonged to the elderly woman's killer, and more likely it belonged to someone she just invited over for tea one day. The case goes cold. 8 years pass when, in 2001, a 61-year-old man is found dead in his home, also in Germany, also strangled to death. DNA found on a kitchen drawer in the house is an exact match with the unknown woman from the previous strangling. It looks like we've got a serial killer on our hands. Somewhere in Germany there's a woman going around strangling old people. But why? A few months later, in a German playground, a 7-year-old steps on a discarded heroin syringe. What sort of animal leaves their dirty needles in a children's playground? An unknown woman sort of animal, as DNA analysis would reveal. Now we're getting a slightly clearer picture. Is this woman a junkie looking for money who is prepared to kill when things get out of hand? A few weeks pass when a caravan is broken into and burgled, once again in Germany. At the scene of the crime is the leftovers of a cookie, on which the unknown woman's DNA is found again. This junkie is desperate for money and food, and assumedly just isn't fond of this particular brand of biscuit. Still not really a lot to go on, but this is far from the last time the unknown woman's DNA would appear at a crime scene. In fact, over the next few years, her DNA is present in all manner of crimes in Germany. It's found in abandoned stolen cars, it's found on bottles in a burgled bar, like she just couldn't resist having a few drinks while robbing the place. It's even found on a bullet after a man got into a fight with his brother and shot him. Now that seems like an open and shut case. Man has gun, shoots brother. How the hell was she involved? At what point did she have possession of the ammunition? The shooter himself didn't seem to understand this. This doesn't seem to correlate with anything we know about her so far, and things only get stranger. Her DNA is recovered from around 40 crime scenes, ranging from petty thefts to murders. The more crimes the police investigate, the less clear it becomes how they're connected, or why a single person is committing all these acts. It made sense when 2 elders were strangled to death, but now there's no clear MO. This unknown woman has now been involved in shooting a policewoman to death as she sat in her car, stealing dozens of cars and motorbikes, breaking into a swimming pool. There's no pattern to her actions at all. She's completely unpredictable. And now her crimes have reached beyond Germany and into Austria and France as well. At this point, the police have a little more to go on. The woman's DNA seems to be of Eastern European descent, perhaps Russian, and there's been other DNA found at some of these crimes, presumably her accomplices, but there's no pattern to that either. She's been aided by Slovaks, Serbs, Romanians, Albanians, Iraqis, you name it, but anyone who's captured won't say a word about the unknown woman, and any witness descriptions seem to vary wildly. Some describe a woman and some describe a man. By 2009, 16 years after the initial murder, a special task force with the Heilbronn police department in Germany were offering a reward of 300,000 euros to anyone with any clues as to the identity of the Phantom of Heilbronn, or the woman without a face. The best guess for this woman without a face is that she's some sort of fixer working with various organised crime outfits but with no real ties to any, moving around constantly, taking any job that comes her way, from thefts to hits. Even this seems unlikely, at least statistically. Women make up only around 10% of all known serial killers, and in contrast to their male counterparts, who are usually more aggressive and violent, it's uncharacteristic for a female serial killer to storm in and start butchering people. They're often described as quiet killers due to their preference for poison and smothering over guns and knives, and most of their murders are committed at home or at work, and generally against people they know. Think of any female serial killer you're familiar with. If they didn't operate alongside a man, I'd be willing to bet they committed their murders in a nursing home or hospital or at home, killing husband after husband. Of course, that doesn't mean it's impossible a woman committed these crimes, but a lot of things don't add up here. The vast area and length of time the crimes were committed over, the disparity in the nature of the crimes, the lack of clear habits or an MO, it seems like a pretty big mistake has been made here somewhere. But the same mistake 40 times across multiple countries? How'd that happen? Well, the police were pretty skeptical at this point too, especially after one particular case. In 2009, police in France found a body of a man burned beyond recognition. They suspected it may have belonged to an asylum seeker who went missing in 2002. To confirm their suspicions, they retrieved his application for asylum, which contained his fingerprints. They swabbed the application to compare it to the DNA of the corpse, only to find a match with the woman without a face. Well, that confirms it. The unknown woman hadn't been committing all these crimes, but she had been contaminating the samples somehow. This raised its own questions though. Multiple labs had been used to analyze all this DNA throughout all these years in all these countries. It couldn't have been one woman running around from lab to lab. The samples must have been contaminated before they ever reached the lab, before the swabs were even used to gather evidence. Oh. Now it's starting to make sense. The police finally unmasked the woman without a face. She was a worker at the factory where they produced the cotton swabs. I'd sure love to know how this information was presented to her and what her reaction to it was, but her identity was never publicly revealed because, well, she hadn't done anything wrong. These swabs were not certified for the collection of DNA. The police had just been ordering mass-produced cotton swabs that anyone could get a hold of. If you lived around this area around this time, then you might have had the Phantom of Heilbronn's DNA in your ears at some point. As a result of this fairly significant investigative oversight, the International Organization for Standardization published a new standard defining the requirements for products used to collect, store, and analyze biological material for forensic purposes. There are pass and fail criteria so manufacturers can test their products to make sure they meet the standard, and unassuming police departments can be sure that the swabs they're buying are certified to not contain contaminants. That sure was an interesting story, but I'd bet it's a lot more entertaining when the factory worker tells it to her friends. Or maybe that's not the sort of thing you should want to be telling people. I don't know. I'd certainly be telling people if it happened to me, but I am a fucking blabbermouth. On that note, if you'd like to hear me blabbing about other subjects in a similar manner, I have over 200 videos you can watch. This is probably why no one tells me any secrets. You can also subscribe to see more in the future, or follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, where I also post my ramblings just in case no one heard me the first time. Well, stay safe.